Yes, so we're having insights into the mission areas. I'll start with a little bit of introductions. Okay, so that's me, Bryan Shen. There's curly whirly words, those are in Thai script. And I have been a missionary since 1997, and I've been in Thailand since year 2000 until the military took over in 2006. I had a short sabbatical break. In this second part in Thailand, I was alone. The first part, I was in a mission center. A little bit more, this is my qualifications. I don't need to go into the details. This is the second part of my life. The first part of my life, I was a military pilot. And if you're wondering why did I switch over, or I didn't want to, but I had a personal crisis in 1992 to 94, and that really changed my whole outlook, and then I switched. It was a very bad crisis, which included some suicide ideation. So it took me a long time to find myself, and I did so mostly through the context of missions and in the personal retreats. But that's not really the fullness of my life. I think the biggest qualification is before 1980. I was the middle child of three children, three boys, and somehow my father didn't like me at all. So I was physically abused, not sexually, but I had to live with my relatives in order to literally stay alive. So what developed is not low self-worth, but internalized low self-worth. And what's the difference is that at the conscious level, I needed external manifestations of worth. And that is driven by this very deep sense of I'm not worthy. So I can only be worthy if I have external manifestation of worth. And that's the one that drives me to be successful and all of that. So I just want to keep that in mind, or help you all keep that in mind so that you know where I'm coming from when I continue to give this presentation. Okay, let's continue on. So I started in Thailand in year 2000. I'll show you a picture of, let me see, I can't, yeah. So this is me when I just started. I'm right here, okay, and it was in a little province in northern Thailand called Chiang Rai, and I was tasked to look after the boys, and the Catholic nuns were tasked to look after the girls. So I was there for 4 years. Okay, as I give this presentation, you can actually follow this presentation in an allegorical way. Now, what do I mean by that? As you know, mission is not just going into another country and doing something, but you can also go to a place within your country. For example, if you're a Christian and maybe if you're asked to help in a Muslim community, that certainly is a mission area. Or even if you are working as an engineer in a project, or if you're working in the military, these are all mission areas. Okay, so you could, as you follow this presentation, just take what I'm saying in an allegorical way. So the first part I'm going to be talking about is preparations, how to prepare as before you move into this mission area, language and immersion into the culture. Now, even if the language isn't different, but the language of engineers, the language of the military people, these are all different languages, and they also have a culture. So again, you could use this presentation in an allegorical way. Prayer and knowing yourself, very crucial if you are a Christian moving into the missions. And then entering into interior lives of the people that you are with. And then the importance of social education as systems counseling. I'm talking about rural areas where there probably is a lot of stigma with regards to counseling. So I'll go a little bit more on this when I'm at this slide number 5. and then dealing with very sensitive issues, and then building networks as you work at more and more in this mission area, and then building the next generation of local counselors. So this will be my 8-part presentation. Okay, so preparations. Do you go alone or under a church? And then some practical things, and then some practical personal issues. Of course, if you're talking about going into another country, this idea of going alone or under a church is obviously a very big question. But let's say if you're going to work in the military, or you're going to work as an engineer, or you're going to work in an area where there's predominantly of another race or another religion. These are all questions that you should be thinking about. So the first one, shall we go alone or under the church? Let's say if you go under a church, okay, in other words, you're asking your church now, would you support me if I'm going into this mission area? So here are some advantages if you are going with the church. There's accountability. Okay, they are probably providing you with some finances, and therefore you need to have some accountability. You can learn from people who are already there. Okay, so for example, if you have a church in which does have a mission already in that particular area or country that you're going to, there can be structural, social, and emotional support. The negatives will be others red tape within your own church bureaucracy due to vainglory. I'll speak a little bit more about vainglory shortly after this. And you can become spiritually stagnated or even deteriorate in that area, even when there's lots of projects and programs going on. Okay, and let me explain that with the slides on vainglory. So what is vainglory? Now, you might be familiar with the 7 capital sins, okay, which is finalized by Pope Gregory the Great in the 5th century. But the first list was written by Evagrius in the 3rd century, and this was his first list. Okay, and 2 centuries later, Pope Gregory combined dejection and despondency into just despondency, and he combined vainglory and pride into just pride, and then he added envy. Now, since then, not very many people know what is vainglory. So what is vainglory? Vainglory is showing to people that you are a good Christian, showing to people that you are very helpful, showing to people that you are very ready to sacrifice for the good of others, showing to people that you are very humble, showing to people that you're very giving. Now, not that all these things are bad, but it is the showing part, to show. That is vainglory. And the verse very directly speaking about vainglory is in the Bible. It's in Matthew 6:1-4. So be careful not to practice your righteousness in front of others to be seen by them. If you do, you will not have reward from your Father in heaven. So when you do give the needy, do not announce it with trumpets, as the hypocrites do in the synagogues or on the streets, to be honored by others. Truly, I tell you, they have received their reward in full. Now, receiving the reward is people praising you. Oh, you're such a good Christian. Oh, you're so clever. Oh, you're so such a hero. That's your reward here on earth. But you will not, if you give the needy, do not let your left hand know what your right hand is doing, so that what you give may be in secret. Now, I'll tell you further, I'm taking from St. John of the Cross, symptoms of a good person infected with vainglory. So here's the first symptom. Stubborn urge for service, increased busyness. You can't say no when there's a need to be done. Even though you're busy, you still want to do it because, everybody will be praising you. Second, irritable at the moral imperfections of others. Now, the more people say and praise you, you're such a wonderful person, you're going to feel very irritated when others don't match up. Inconsistent drive and energy to do good. When there's no praise, you can't do the good. In fact, when the praise dies, your energy dies. In fact, sometimes you will have so many projects, you're lacking energy, and then here comes a new need and you will volunteer because the vainglory in you will push you to want to do more good. You're unable to receive counsel. Everybody praises you, and it's very hard for someone to point out your faults. You can't accept it. Prone to politicking because of all of point number 1, 2, 3, 4. Number 6 and 7 is written by St. John the Cross. Your spiritual progress stops. And the last one, I think, is the most frightening. The good works you have done are not blessed by God. And personally, I have seen that even in groups where everybody is really vainglorious and people outside of the group praise everyone in this group, but everyone in this group are backbiting each other and they are politicking against each other, backstabbing each other. Okay. Well, I think if you look at all the symptoms, you will realize that vainglory is also existing within our communities and within our church. So we are back here. So be very careful if you are going under a church, and you can fall into vainglory, depending on whether you know yourself. Now, if you go alone, these are the advantages. You can pace yourself, of course. You're much more open to what God has planned for you. You learn simplicity, a bit of asceticism and reliance on providence. Now, when I say go alone, as in you have no financial support. Your interior movements, mostly through the good that exists among the locals, you are aware of the interior movements within yourself. And the negative is you'll be buffeted by your own weaknesses and demons, and no accountability. Now, I'll just show you some, also no structure, social or emotional support. I'll show you some pictures of the time that I was in a village in Non Yan Kam. And before that, I'll just show you where is Non Yan Kam. It's in Thailand. It's a very, very small village. Let me see. Yeah, you can see it's a very, very tiny village. And you can see the 4 buildings here. Well, when I first arrived, it was only 2 buildings. This is the main church, and this is a very old building that's termite infested. And after a while, my job was to build a new place where there'll be more people that can come in to do training for the children who have not been catechized for so long. And this is also a new building for the training. And you can see that it's a very, very tiny village. That's all there is to it. And if I were to show you on the map exactly where it is, it's in the town of Seka, Seka district, and that's in the northeastern part of Thailand. Okay, so let's see if we can get there. You have Thailand, Vietnam, and that's where it is. Okay, so it's quite far. And that's the termite infested building that I first went into. Lots of holes. That's where I had to stay for a while. And by the way, I was there alone. And that's how big the lizard is, and these are the local people. I had to spend some time in order to understand, the culture and what they're used to. Wonderful people, very simple people. Is the children, they would come to my place and they would do their homework there. And then we started the project to build the house that I just pointed out to you, and that's completed. And then from there, there's now a proper place where more people could come in to stay and give catechism to the children. So the sisters came, and there's enough room for them to stay. And there's other people to teach the children. And then they had their baptism, the first after many, many years. So this is a celebration. Okay, so that's just very quickly my experience of going alone. Okay, my recommendation is you have a balance of autonomy and poverty. Okay, and I'll explain a little bit more about the usefulness of poverty. In the Hebrew language, there are 7 different kinds of poverty. Anawim, which is a pious kind of poverty. I won't go into the details because that would take too much time. And then have a balance of support, funds, and legitimacy. Legitimacy means either you are actually recognized by either a group or professional body. Okay, next, personal practical things. No need to preempt every possible scenario. Now, if you remember in all 3 Gospels, where Jesus says, don't carry a traveler's bag with a change of clothes or sandals or even a walking stick. Don't hesitate to accept hospitality because those who work deserve to be fed. I find this to be extremely true. Okay. Do not unknowingly leave an impression that you've got everything sorted out. Why? Because if a situation does develop, let the local people show you how they solve the problem. Okay, and I'll give you some examples. When I first arrived in Thailand, and it was the first 6 months, I developed a cough. And that was because I was reacting to the dust and, in the hot season. And the cough wouldn't go away. And it developed into a very, very bad lung reaction. And I was losing energy because I was just coughing all the time. Well, after all the medicines in the hospitals and spending lots and lots of money, one of the teachers was teaching me. She gave me this medicine, local medicine. And just by taking this medicine within 5 days, the whole thing just cleared up by itself. It's very cheap. It's only like half a US dollar for 80 tablets. And I'm supposed to take like 5 tablets twice a day. And that solved the problem. I also had a time where I developed a very, very bad itch, a rash. It was developing exponentially in the space of about 6 to 8 months. And finally, once when it was so bad, I took a picture of my skin and sent it to an American doctor who says, Bryan, you've got scabies. Scabies, what is that? So I had to go into the internet, type what it is, and find out what do they call it in the Thai language. And they said, oh, this is very common here. And we've got this medicine. It's only like half a US dollar. And again, it just solved the problem. The next picture I'm going to show you just in a very brief, because it's quite, so this is a skin rash on the left back side of the body. It's a combination of okay, it's a worm called Strongyloides, and it's the word just come out of my mouth. Okay, never mind. What happened is that with this rash, I couldn't eat. The shingles, that's right, that's the word. It's a combination of a worm and shingles. So shingles, as you know, it just goes round, along the nerves. But the worms are actually spreading this. But actually, I didn't even know that it was the worms because the worms were undetectable. Strongyloides is very tiny. It's only 1 millimeter in length. The doctors in Thailand couldn't diagnose anything. So after 8 weeks, I flew back to Singapore, and then they found the diagnosis and found what it was and treated. But here's the important thing. I was taken so well. I was taken care so well by the local people. Okay, and it is when we can see that it is they who have what is better that's the good news. Okay, and we should always keep in mind that God and goodness precedes us, and that's the reason why you don't go with readiness for every possible scenario. Okay, so personal issues, know yourself, know what is driving you into mission. Do you have any unresolved issues? Do you have a need to be regarded in a positive way? Are there any negative regards in your past history? Now, always have a pastor or a spiritual director who is also trained in counseling if possible, or a counselor who is also trained in the spiritual direction. That would be very good. Okay, language, and learn the language in mission. Don't stay in your own group. If you're going together with other missionaries, don't stay together. It's even better if you go alone to learn the language, because you have to listen and listen with your heart. It's more important than learning with your brain. So really, I would say listen with the ears of your heart, and that's where you will learn the nuances of the language. Immersion into the culture, do as they do, respect what they respect, and take note of the social stratifications, dress appropriately, know when to be involved and when not to be. Very important, for example, if you are going into a community of another religion to help them in counseling, let's say, okay, then this will be an excellent way to slowly move in as a missionary, and slowly into counseling. Okay, so the language and the culture is the thing that's going to open you up to many, many areas that foreigners cannot enter. And I certainly really, really love the Thai culture and the people because of this ability to enter. And in fact, it's the other way around. They open your doors so much, and they take you in and to be part of your family. Prayer and knowing yourself in mission, faith in prayer is often needed. And being in mission is also an opportunity to grow in faith. The reason is because many external things will be beyond your control. And what is internally beyond your control also frequently becomes obvious. So your own pride, your own anxieties, fears, compulsion, and unforgiveness, maybe, all that will become obvious. Okay, and you need to be sensitive and to be aware, and therefore to have time for reflection and prayer. Now, this is anecdotal from my own experience also. 2/3 of missionaries want to serve because of their unresolved issues. They want to show that they are worthy people. They want to show that they are good. They want to show that they can do good things for others. That needs attention. Okay, so have frequent self-reflections. Now, not that these things are bad. I think they are there for a reason. Okay, so God has allowed all these things to develop for a good reason. Entering into the interior lives. So first and foremost is to be a witness of authenticity and a witness of salvation. So don't hide your weaknesses and don't hide your history. Okay, so it's very important for people to know that, wow, I can't believe this. You went through all of that, and this is where you are today. So be authentic and share your lives. Give educational talks to raise awareness. Now, I'll show you some pictures where these educational talks become quite useful. So you can give to very small groups. Okay, so this is to a parent group. Or you can give it to parents in a small school. So these are parents in a very rural school, way up north in Thailand. Okay. Use lots of diagrams, graphs, and pictures. Make it as simple and easy to understand as possible. Explain what is confidentiality. That this is very crucial. What I find is that when I explain to people that if you do tell me something that is very, very confidential, by regulation, I cannot tell anyone else unless you give me permission. Now, when you say that, you give them so much confidence, or rather the feeling that, okay, this is someone I want to talk to. Not being in a position of power or influence can be an asset, okay, especially where social hierarchy is strong. And on top of that, if you are not, you're a foreigner, but you speak their local language, that adds a little bit more of a feeling of safety for them. Now, being a registered and licensed in an internationally recognized association would also help. Now, word does get around, so there's no need to budget for advertisements. Now, counseling programs like health screening programs are very useful. Okay, and the objective is to make counseling a pleasant, valuable experience. So I'll give you an example. Here is a group of seminarians, and if I'm asked to go and speak to only a few who are in trouble, it's going to be very difficult. The resistance will all come up. But if I say to the person in charge, okay, I've got a counseling program, everybody will go through it. It's fun, it's very valuable. Then not only will it not be so bad for the 3 or few, but you might come across a lot more cases where nobody knows, but that person actually has kept his issues so well hidden, but he is very happy to have someone that he feels safe to work with. Okay, so this is an example where counseling programs comes in very helpful. Importance of social counseling as systems counseling. Okay, so with stigma, educating the important people around an individual becomes very important. Okay, that's also because the awareness of psychosocial family developmental health is low. There's stigma, and psychoeducation, if it is given, has 2 benefits. The person himself will understand, because before that they have no idea that there's problems, and private personal requests for help also increases. Okay, I'll just show you again. So these are some of the counseling for the society. This was given to a school. This was given in Malaysia to a church, and you can see it's all parents and teachers. And this was given in the Philippines, so those who are running schools, those who are leaders in society. Okay, dealing with sensitive issues. Now, I am also educating people about the developmental factors that contribute to same-sex attractions. It's very, very sensitive, as you can imagine, in Asia. Educate top-down, not bottom-up. Why? Because if the people on top still have negative perceptions and negative, they have prejudice, the people at the bottom still will remain silent. Okay? You need to respect the strengths and limitations of the social system and the hierarchy, and show that you're able to make the important people around the individual understand. Okay, so here's one example. This is in Sarawak, and I'm giving a talk, but the bishop is right in front. The archbishop is right in front there. Okay, and here's another one in Cebu, where the bishop is here, and all his priests and his elders are there. And you will find that after giving the talk, the young ones are so happy that, okay, we've gotten everybody to understand. Okay, and the whole community now don't look at it in a way that it's very, very negative and bad. Now, it's not that homosexuality is okay and acceptable, no, but what's more important is the psychosocial developmental factors. That's the one that needs attention, and that's the one that needs the compassion that each religion can provide. So educate the importance of knowing how to regard personal matters private, confidential, and sacred. Okay, this is very important in maintaining the social cohesion of the community. Okay, so social counseling is very important in mission. Okay, and therefore it is very important for you to also know the language and the culture. Okay, the importance of integrity, legitimacy, and congruence. Okay, so increasingly, community leaders in the rural areas, they know that they cannot get away with cronyism, really. So if a leader likes you and wants to endorse you, it'll be good that if you have the legitimacy and the integrity, and you have all the qualifications, if you can have that. Make sure that you're properly accredited with proper records and don't slack if you're out there in mission. So if you do have your own country's registration or license, do keep it up. And then speak to the community leaders of the mission areas, teachers and all that. Tap on their motivation for congruence of culture and morality. Okay, so here again, speaking to the leaders of the community, this is the regional. They may not be dressed so much, but they're really heavyweights in the Catholic Church of the regions. We have 2 bishops here and many people who are in charge of the family life. Okay, so building the next generation of local counselors. To be both a missionary and a counselor brings a special quality to the counseling relationship. Now, as you can see, the preparations for you as you go into the mission and then getting to know the people is very, very important before you can become that special counselor in mission. So actually, they are kind of like, they just flow in together so well, actually. All right. Now, if some of your clients eventually want to become counselors, very good. And I'll give you an analogy. A child's first counselor is actually the child's own parents. So if a girl will say to her mother, "Mom, one day I want to become like you," or a son that says to father, "One day I will want to become like you," that's the analogy. Okay, so it's that very special relationship that you build up with the local community before you give the counsel. So from my experience as a missionary counselor, it is more like being a supervisor of local counselors, always encouraging and guiding further parents and leaders and teachers. So this is the Philippine Association for Christian Counselors. They're doing fantastic work, especially now in the pandemic. A lot of their clients are just unable to afford. So I'm always happy to support them. This is the counselors in northern Thailand. I did this course for them. It was one of the most challenging because I was giving the course in both English and Thai. Every sentence I have to give it in English and Thai. After a few days, it was very tiring. I was making the mistake of, some words in Thai, some words in English, and, after a while, people couldn't understand. These people here, they were my helpers, and they were just wonderful people holding up a sign, English only, Thai only, and then sometimes the sign comes up, take a break. So I really, really am so happy and proud of them, and I will always be supporting them. So hopefully, over time, you will be able to see the next generation of people who will be continuing the work that you're doing. So with that, I've come to the end of my presentation, and I'm now open to any questions and answers. So over to you, Pastor Ben.
Thanks, Bryan. What a wonderful sharing. We learned so much from your experience. About missions and all that is so practical. Okay, I want to open up this time for all the participants. You can actually unmute to ask Bryan any question that you want, or you can also type into the chat. So please do so right now. We have about probably 10 minutes or so. Yeah, just unmute and ask Mr. Bryan any question that you want him to engage with. Please do so. Any burning question that you may have. Okay, I'm also watching the chat and see whether there's any question there. Yeah, you need to unmute in order to ask the question. Anyone, please feel free to do that. Okay, I have one question at the chat. It says, pre-field psychological assessment is necessary, but what tool do you recommend? I'm not sure whether Brian, do you see the chat, or do you need me to repeat the question?
Yes, I see that in the chat. Yes, if you do have your own organizations that has its own psychological assessment, use that. Okay. I personally use 3. One is called the Histrionics and Personality Indicator. The second one is the Personality Disorder version 4. But these are just tools, really. They're only tools. And really, it is the personal knowledge of the person, interview, and then getting to know the person's developmental history. That will be more important. So if you do have not just a person who is a psychologist who is also doing psychometry, but people who know the person intending to go and know them personally and well, and that's more important. I must say also that you don't need to have a perfect person going. Okay, what's very important is that does the person have the heart in the right place? Is the person ready to learn? And then the importance of having appropriate boundaries. Now, that is where a professional counselor or a very experienced elder or person with spiritual direction, with knowledge and experience, is able to say, okay, these are your boundaries. Don't cross it. Okay, and as you gain experience in the mission, yes, the boundaries can shift. So I would say that knowing the person very well is very important, and all these psychometry tools are just as what it is. These are tools, and the tools can be helpful because they can pick up certain things that just knowing a person in a short space of time is not able to pick up. So I hope that answers the question.
Thanks, Brian. That's definitely helpful. There are 2 more questions at the chat. Maybe you can pick that up.
Okay, the next one is, you must have taken a long time to learn the language to do counseling with the people. Yes. What do we do in the process? Just learn the language and do counseling when language is competent. Well, I really like that question. Let me tell you from my own experience. There are 3 levels of learning a language. The first level is, okay, you go to school, you learn the ABCs, what is this word, what is that word, and okay, so that's the first level. Now, the second level is where you can use these words in the cultural context. That takes time. That really requires you to be together and listen to how the words are being said. Because if you're very familiar with the brain, it's not just the language, but it's also the prosthetic language. Okay, so prosthetic language is the intonation, the rhythm, and then the context of how it's being said. That takes quite some time. Now, for most people, when you go into a country, these are the 2 levels. Okay, so when you reach the second level, you can really participate in the conversations. Okay, because you understand the feelings and and all of that. Okay, and it's very, very different, but at the same time, it's very rewarding. Okay. I'll give you an example. In Thailand, when someone says "ow," for us in English, "ow" means "oh, ouch," that kind of thing. But in Thailand, it's like it's a word not a word even. It's just a sound to express surprise. Okay, what's this? What's going on? Okay, there's just no books that will tell you that. You just have got to be there long enough and say, okay, that's how they use it. Now, what's the third level? The third level is specific to counselors. Why do I say that? Because in counseling, you have to be authentic. You've got to be very clear to the client, whether you're able to listen or not. And I'll tell you my little a trick. It's not really a trick. I'm really trying my level best to understand them. Very often they will use words which I've never heard before. And I will very, very truthfully say to them, wait, hold on a minute. Can you explain what is this? I've never heard of this before. And sometimes they'll say, why haven't you heard it before? And I don't, because I'm not Thai. You're not Thai? No, I'm not, but you speak Thai. I said, yes, but I just want to know what you're saying. And then they will explain. And then I will not say repeat it, I will paraphrase it in a way that says, I'm trying to understand it. Does it mean this? Yeah, that's what it is. Now, it's a kind of a trick to get a feeling that you are interested to know what they mean. You really want to understand. So that is the way in which I really go very deep into understanding the language. Now, I'll tell you that when I do counseling for 2 weeks nonstop, when I go to a seminary, I may be doing 5 counseling sessions per day, and it goes on for 2 weeks. At the end of that 2 weeks, my dreams at night are in Thai language. That's how deep I go into the language when I'm really in the counseling. And yes, I do go very deeply into it because I do want to understand them. But that's not so much of a language competency. That's very much coming from the heart. Okay, so that's what I mean by listening with the ears of your heart. Okay, and that's the one that the clients will really, really appreciate. So I hope that gives you an understanding that you don't have to wait for your language to be so perfect. All you need to do is that desire to really understand them and be truthful. I don't understand this word that you're saying. Can you explain that to me? But it does require you to have some level of competency in the language before you can say, explain that to me, because they will be explaining it to you in their own language, in their language. So I hope that answers your question.
Thanks, Bryan. We have time for one last question. I think there's one more question.
Okay, the next question. Yeah. How did you talk and manage to convince the religious community leaders to see the importance of counseling and psychoeducation? Okay. Well, firstly, you need to find an opening in which you can speak about certain things that they would listen to. And this is something where, firstly, if you're a foreigner, that does say something. You know yourself in your own community. If you have a foreigner who speaks your language and he has something to say, you want to know what he's saying, because he probably is observing something that your locals don't observe so much, or he's observing something that the locals just take for granted. Secondly, if you do have some kind of accreditation, so if you are qualified as a counselor, if you are qualified and registered, that is also another opening. Okay, and you can explain to them in very simple terms the importance of, for example, attachment styles. And they'll say, well, what is attachment styles? This is when the child, very young, attaches to the parents, but how the child attaches to the parents depends very much on the busyness of the parents, and you explain it in a very simple way. And if you're able to do that, they were all like, oh no, I didn't know this, and it's very important, and I'd be happy to give this knowledge to more people. And they would say, oh yeah, come, and they will tell their friends to come and listen to you. Okay, so this is some of the ways in which you can spread, some of the very little knowledge that you have. I would put it is a kind of like telling stories that people will want to listen. Okay, but what you're doing is you're putting your knowledge into a way that the local people will want to understand. And of course, again, having their language and knowing what really, really opens them up. I can tell you in Thailand, they love to have a serious message put in a way that is very lighthearted. They love it. Okay, so I love to do the same thing in order to get it through. So I hope that answers the question too.
Thank you, Brian. It is really so helpful. Thank you for taking time to answer all these questions. We really appreciate you for the time spent with us. Okay, so thank you so much for this 1 hour of sharing.